We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube, and also rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. Merry Christmas indeed, Shadrax. I see that comment out there. It is free agency time, day one, and just like what everyone was kind of talking about, everyone was expecting, Ryan Poles comes out with the pocketbook out, spending all sorts of money out there on all sorts of different free agents. So we're going to break it down. I got some advanced metrics that I haven't seen anybody really kind of post out there too, not just your standard PFF stuff, that I'm excited to break down with all their signings, because this is the good day. This is the good day indeed. Also, hi, Brider, saying waiting for us to go live. Love it. Love it. Yeah, we have to break this all down. So far, chat's already saying that this is an A. I'm asking you, chat out there, how would you grade these signings? And I got to say, too, I was, during this time, I had 5 hours of straight meetings from 11 all the way until 4 o'clock. So right when it started, I'm sitting there like, and I'm running these meetings going, oh man, I hope the Bears got Dalman. I hope the Bears got Dalman. And man, it feels good. It feels so good. And I see Shadrax out there drinking some bourbon. Yeah, hit the like button. So let's get this show on the road, shall we? And let's talk about the biggest signing today. That's right, Tarvarius Moore. I wanted to just throw him out there just so that we could be like, hey, he was re-signed, added to another year. So now you have more depth at safety. But let's talk about the real news, shall we? No offense to the Tarvarius Moore family out there, but let's talk about Drew Dalman. How are you all feeling about Drew Dalman? Because the Bears end up getting him 3 years, $42 million with $28 million guaranteed. That was kind of the expectation that we saw on Over the Cap, and every other cap expert was saying 14. Talked about this yesterday. We were getting a little nervous because he is the only center on the market, because we kind of showed this little graphic with Dalman and Kelly and Shelton and Evan Brown, and the projection was 14. He ends up getting it in only 3 years. All the big signings today getting 3-year deals. So Drew Dalman, $14 million a year. So what can I tell you about this? I'll tell you a little bit about Drew Dalman. First off, last season, he was 5th overall in run block grade from PFF, 21st in pass pro, which, we talked about him as a pass protector, or not as a great pass protector, but someone that needs to improve. Still, last season was the 21st overall pass protector according to PFF. Also, fun fact, ESPN, because they have their own pass blocking metrics, they said that he had a 95.1% pass block win rate in 2024, which was 9th highest among centers with at least 500 snaps. So ESPN saying that, hey, he's slightly better at pass protection than what people are kind of giving him some credit for. Also, just want to kind of call out, just really, this seems like a great pickup. PFF grade, 78.8 overall, 82.3 last season. So how's everybody feeling? So this is my feeling with this, is if I have to give this a grade, this isn't just about Drew Dalman, the player himself, because like we talked about yesterday, very, very good run blocker. And when it comes down to the pass protection, that's where you're hoping that he gets better, because after all, he's only 26 years old, so he does foreseeably have a higher cap and hopefully can get better and better and better, because that's also what you're seeing with him. He is progressing as a pass blocker. To me, the biggest storyline with this is the number one thing the Bears had to do this offseason is protect Caleb Williams. They got the guards, but the other thing is you had to get someone at center. And Drew Dalman was the only person you really felt comfortable with at that center position. Because yet again, you go through everyone else. Evan Brown, I know a lot of us Bears fans were trying to convince ourselves, hey, well, if we land Evan Brown, but if we landed Evan Brown, we would have been convincing ourselves, we would have been asking, hey, who's in the draft? If we had Coleman Shelton, that'd feel like connecting with an ex-girlfriend, right? You're bringing your ex back to go to a wedding or something. You're like, hey, you want to come over here? Like, you just got rid of them and you're like, you want to come back? Like, that doesn't feel right. And then Ryan Kelly, someone who we said, I liked him, but there was questions about how much longer does he actually want to play. Don't love that for someone that you want to pair up with your quarterback. There's also rumors too that Drew Dalman also took less money to come to the Chicago Bears because he wanted to play with with Caleb Williams. Sorry, all the news about Justin just signing that $20 million a year deal made me think about that. But man, to me, Drew Dalman, absolutely love it. I'm giving it an A because of who was available. There wasn't really anyone available in the draft. There wasn't really anybody available in free agency. So you sign him 3 years, only $14 million for someone that solidifies the biggest thing that you have been plaguing to try and find for years and years. I love it. I really, really, really like this signing overall. Now, there are still a couple question marks because inside of a Ben Johnson system, I was doing some deeper dives. He does run more of a gap system more than a zone system. Dalman has ran really a lot of zone running systems. So with Ben Johnson, he likes the bigger guys that can really kind of move people. Dalman under 300 pounds, but still, good mover out there, open in space. But yet again, you got to be moving your people off the ball. So that is a little bit of a question mark. But what also makes me feel good about Drew Dalman, he did this. He gave you good production for 2 seasons, like incredibly good run blocking production over 2 seasons with 2 different offensive coordinators and play callers and systems. So to me, just shows some versatility and that he's not just dependent on a play caller. So that's how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling overall with Drew Dalman. And another piece too, like I said, I wanted to add a little bit more stats. NFL Next Gen Stats also really likes Drew Dalman. So another little tidbit, when you're looking at one-on-one pressure rate. So Drew Dalman center versus one individual person. Drew Dalman's pressure rate on one-on-one blocks was at 4%, which was 5th best in the entire NFL. Not bad. Not bad at all. And he was one-on-one 45% of his pass blocks, which was the 2nd highest rate among centers this season. So if you want to point to like PFF grades and stuff like that, why it might be a little bit lower, he is asked to block more on an island. So some pretty good stuff out there from that overall. And last but not least, a little tidbit about Drew Dalman. He returned in week 13 because he was banged up last season against the Chargers after missing 9 games due to an injury and only allowed 1 pressure and 1 sack on 40 pass blocking snaps. So, like I said, I'm gonna just gotta go through some of the comments, how we feeling overall. I already see a lot of Dayo people out there talking about it, but yeah, we'll talk about that next for me. But yeah, a lot of people saying A, love it. Yeah, Drew Dalman, to me, like, let's just look at this offense, because what we'll do today is we'll break down the free agents. We'll talk about what's next for the Bears, but then also just the overall impact on it. So let's talk about it, because when you look at the offensive line, you have who you want up front. And I think that's just what's key. That's just what feels so good. And also, this will kind of bleed into the impact on the draft and what's next, because what the Bears are saying is we want to run the football. When you look at this, Braxton Jones, who, yes, a holdover from the last regime, more of a run blocker than a pass blocker. Jonah Jackson, more of a run blocker than a pass blocker. Drew Dalman, more of a run blocker than a pass blocker. Darnell Wright has been kind of even keel, but he's really taken a step with his run blocking. And now Joe Thuney, he can do everything. So this line is set up to run the football. We like to run a lot of, we also like to run with a lot of 2 tight end sets. Durham Smythe, more of a blocker anyways. So seems like we're going to be trying to run the ball a little bit more. So let's get into this. Let's talk a little bit about the defensive end that we just signed to, which is, I got to pull up my pronunciation sheet. I actually wrote this down. And for fans of the show, you know that I'm terrible with pronunciations, including states. So it is Dayo Odeyingbo as the new defensive end. And that's what I'm curious about. I'm seeing a lot of hate out there inside of the comments. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Dayo Odeyingbo? So I'll talk a little bit about him. $16 million a year for the defensive end, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts. So 3 years, $48 million. Yet again, more 3-year deals, $32 million guaranteed. So you're kind of seeing a lot of the guarantees in that first 2 years, most likely. We don't have the exact contract details of how it's spread out. Think of it as you need to get out of a contract like this. You can get out of it in the 3rd year. But also what we're looking at, Dayo Odeyingbo is 6'6", 286. And we talked about this on the show before, where this is what a Dennis Allen, or actually yesterday, we were talking a little bit about this. Dennis Allen likes large defensive ends. He doesn't want someone who's 6'4", 245, even though I love James Pierce. He doesn't want those smaller guys. He wants larger defensive ends, especially like Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Peyton Turner that they had. He likes large defensive ends to run his system. He likes those to have length on the outside. That's what Dayo Odeyingbo does. Super long arms, super tall, large, but not necessarily a starter. 61 games he played, only 19 starts. And last season, PFF charted him with 4 sacks, 13 hits, 25 hurries, so 42 total pressures, which if you're curious where that ranks, because seems pretty good, that's 44th among all NFL edge rushers last season. Also, too, his pass rush win rate was 12.6, which was 44th out of 119 qualifying players, and his run defense percentage was 4%, which was 107th out of 129. So not great, not really great right there. But it might be because he missed a lot of tackles last season, 24% missed tackle rate. So not great right there. So how are we feeling? And let me just see out there. I see Sophisticated saying, "Finally put it away." Just reading some of these. Here's my feeling. I see Bears Junkie liking it. I see a lot of people out there. My whole thoughts on this is that I don't necessarily love it, right? And I feel it's okay to not love this because, like I said, this is a Dennis Allen scheme-specific pick. I want to watch the tape. I truthfully have not watched a lot of Dayo's tape, so that is one thing that I want to see. But also, too, he is very flexible. So he played 1,400 snaps on the outside edge, 300 over the tackle, and 236 in kind of that 3 technique. And also, pretty young. He's going to be 26 this year, 25 and a half right now. So younger prospect, someone that you're hoping blooms. We talked about the Achilles tear last episode, where he tore his Achilles in the pre-draft process. Comes out, he's been getting better and better and better. So they clearly see something. He's a scheme fit with Dennis Allen. Do I love it? I don't really love it all that much. Just because I think also too, people see Sweat's deal where he went for about $19 million. One thing to just kind of say out there as well, Josh Sweat, he went over to a former coach of his too in Arizona. So I think you have to think about that as well, that he left to go over there. I think overall, Dayo Odeyingbo, what he at least gives you is he gives you what you need schematically. And I think that's the biggest piece. And now you have this larger defensive end. I want to watch some tape on him to see, but currently not super impressed is where I'm coming at with it. So I'm going to give it about a C. If I have to do it, give it a grade because I don't necessarily love it, but I want to watch it. I want to watch him more because I've heard some people, like I heard JJ Stankovic kind of talk a little bit about him and kind of mention just he thinks that he's got some high upside as a pass rusher and all that. So I got to watch it. I got to watch it. Younger player just getting better every year. I just always get nervous with those. It's just not, for anyone that watches the show knows that that's not my cup of tea. I want you to show me, right? Show me you're good at football. And then, you know, the potential people are always where you kind of get hosed. But that's why we have the 3-year deal with them. So Solidifies the other defensive end spot. So Montez Sweat, Dayo Odeyingbo, still look for someone to potentially get added in the draft because, like I said, you can kind of have them as that designated pass rusher. So yeah, I agree with Legsit. Giving about a C. Jason's out there giving it a B minus. Romy's saying he watched the tape. He liked it. Yeah. Shy Track saying it's not gross, Brad. Dude, I got to say that beer emoji does look pretty darn good. I have an empty water bottle, which I forgot to fill up. So, but also too, yeah, Muck saying Colts also had a horrible secondary, which hurt the defense a lot. That's why his sacks were down last season. Yeah, we'll have to see. Bears Bones saying the signing so far makes me think 10 pick might be Genty. So we'll see. We'll see for sure. But let's see. Let's keep on going then. And let's talk about the next signing. So right after that, Bears go, you know what? This was so much fun. Let's sign another person to a 3-year deal. They end up signing Grady Jarrett. And this is another person too that I just want to call out. When we added Joe Thuney, the big thing about Joe Thuney was the leadership that he brought on the offensive line, but also on the offense. Because right now, the leaders are just some of these young guns. And Joe Thuney knows what it takes. Now, Grady Jarrett isn't this highly decorated Super Bowl champion like a Joe Thuney, but he's still someone, multiple-time Pro Bowler. I think also made some All-Pros. Don't quote me on that exactly. But he's been someone that has been a very, very, very productive 3 technique in this season, in this league. Bears sign him, and he is also beloved in Atlanta. The locker room loved him. He is a leader out there. Now you have a leader on that defensive line with Montez Sweat, right? You feel really good about that going into this season. You have good leadership at the linebacker position. You also have Kevin Byard on the back end. I love it. You have leaders at all different levels of this defense. So you have the leadership that's being brought in to be instilled into these players. But also you sign them 3 years, $43.5 million, which is $43.5 million total, 14.5 over the per year, and 28.5 guaranteed. So yet again, similar structures that they're trying to go. They're saying, hey, Caleb has 3 years left on his deal, minus the 5th-year option. He has 3 years left. Y'all are going to be tied up with Caleb. We're going to be one giant regime. Everyone's marching together. Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, Grady Jarrett, Dayo Odeyingbo, Drew Dalman, Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze. We're all going 3 years. We're all going 3 years. And if everything fails, we're bailing out. But Grady Jarrett comes in after tearing his ACL in 2023, comes into 2024, and has a pretty darn good year. Now, the PFF grade, not great at 62, but still rolls up and gets has a 8.9% pass rush win rate, which was 45th best out of 120 qualifying defensive tackles. Also, his run stop percentage was 9%. So on running plays, does he account for that run stop, which was 20th out of 153 D tackles. So even though that he gets a lot of press for being an amazing pass rusher or very good pass rusher at that 3 technique, he also knows how to stop the run. He also had 34 total pressures, which was good for 34th in the entire league. So even though that he's a little bit older, he's going to be 32. You're going to have 3 other seasons of him. Still pretty darn good. And another stat that I want to throw out there, just adding to, because I think everybody looks at him as a pass rusher and they're like, that's what he does. He's just a pass rusher. He's just a pass rusher. He can stop the run. Grady Jarrett, so this is a stat from Next Gen Stats saying Grady Jarrett has stuffed opposing rushers for a loss or no gain, a team leading 13 times this season. And this was at the end of the season, I got this stat, tied for 4th most run stuffs among all defensive tackles, according to Next Gen Stats. So some of you out there might be like, so what's right? Next Gen Stats, all that you need to know is that they love him and still can play at a high level. So signing this, what's everyone's thoughts on this one? Because I feel like this one kind of slides on in, and that's kind of, it just kind of slid on in. But what I really like about this is Grady Jarrett reminds me of, oh man, what was there's a 3 technique for him. Let me just pull up who it was. Sheldon Rankins kind of reminds me a little bit of a better version of Sheldon Rankins, who was a 3 technique that was consistently out there in the Dennis Allen system. To me, I think Grady Jarrett fits that mold. And I've always said this with Gervon Dexter. I've always felt like Gervon should be not a 3 technique because he's so big, so powerful. I like to see him as a 1 tech, to be more of that run stuffer because of just how big he is. I think he can be very disruptive fighting off some double teams. So I really like this pairing. Ideally with him, because you're kind of expecting Javon and Grady Jarrett to kind of be playing together. That's the thing that I'm really excited to see. So I like him. You add some really good depth to your defensive tackle room because now you have Andrew Billings as a good rotational depth piece. Love it. And then also too, then you have Zach Pickens, Chris Williams kind of duking it out. And now I don't feel like we have to draft a defensive tackle because you have 2 years left on Zach Pickens. The signing that they did with Chris Williams is around $3 million. So I kind of expect him to play a little bit more than expected. So I feel like D tackle is good unless someone becomes available because you just added this brand new shiny piece there. I like what they did. I really like what they did. For Grady Jarrett, I think Lexit and I are on the same piece, same mindset. I'm giving Grady Jarrett like a B. I'm not like over the moon. I only give out A's when I absolutely love it. To me, I like it. I think it's solid. So overall, I think if I had to grade the day, it'd be like a B plus. I think, or, actually, if you average it out, it's about a B. I think it was good. I think, you got Dalman. You just added some really good pieces. So like B plus, but it feels good because we solidified the trenches. Now, the question with Dayo is going to be just a continuous question that we keep on talking about. I can't wait to grind some of the tape. I'll have to see when we can do that. Like we could maybe do it. I know we love to do our tape sessions. That could be something that we end up looking at just to say, hey, what did we get? And hopefully at the end of it, we don't feel too bad about it. So, so let's see what we have out there. So now here's all of our people out there. And I see Joe's question out there. Great question. Would I get Mason at 10? We'll talk about that next because what's next for the Bears now? Because we signed the center, right? It's kind of the Finding Nemo meme when they're all in the plastic bags at the end of Finding Nemo and they just say, now what? Right? We got a center. We got a defensive tackle. We got a defensive end. So now what? And supposedly, right, we don't have the exact cap numbers yet, but the rumor is that the Bears have about $13 million in cap space right now. Now, that also factors in the salary, the draft and everything like that. So, they don't have a lot of room to play with. Like we said before, too, because they're already at 53 players on their roster. Technically, if you sign someone for $2 million, it really just subtracts 1 because you kind of knock one off of the list, then you add another one on. So you can at least make some smaller moves. So a couple that I'm looking at, Josh Reynolds, DJ Chark. I think what that Ryan Poles is going to be looking for is, let's wait a couple days and can we get some of these veterans at wide receiver? Get them a little bit cheaper. Is there anyone else that Dennis Allen just kind of wants to fill in with his defense? Because you're looking at this defense, there's not really like Dennis Allen all over this defense. Now, we knew that he was going to still run like a 4-3 system. It was going to be similar, but you don't really see his fingerprints all over this. You just kind of saw 2 signings, and that's really it. 2 signings and then a bunch of re-signings. So that is something that I'm looking out for. Just look for slight little things being added. So let's see what's out there too. Also 67 in the chat. Gotta love it. I actually don't ever see how many people are actually in the chat, so I appreciate that. But yeah, we need to just add a couple players. Now, yet again, we don't use the slot receiver too much in this offense, but it's still something that might be nice because, yet again, if we are tossing out the Detroit Lions playbook, we might want to have a slot receiver because, we've seen a Caleb Williams use that slot receiver a little bit more. But let's talk. Let's talk about what this does on the impact of the draft, shall we? Because I know a lot of you are just absolute draft sickos out there. You love the NFL draft just like me. How does this impact the draft? Because I think we first have to look at the roster and we have to think about who might be the players that we can really upgrade. Like we said, slot receiver, kind of that third weapon might be a really nice thing to add. Also, like we talked about, tight end potentially, because Durham Smythe is like a good third tight end, but not necessarily a second tight end. Next, I want to bring up running back. I felt like the moves today just solidified that the Bears are going to draft a running back. Why? Because who loves to not run through the holes when they're open? DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift likes to do his own thing. And when you need just like a gap system runner, you need somebody that just hits the holes. You need somebody that just goes through it. And I think when we're looking at this, that probably my next episode about the draft, I think we're just going to have to go through running backs because that seems to be the biggest position that I think that the Bears could do. But let's talk about who might be available. Because when you talk about this first pick, I think that the biggest question mark, there's two people that I think that I'm going to have the biggest question marks on. One is Mason Graham. I see Mason Graham out there because Mason Graham is someone that has short arms. He's smaller in stature. But also, do the Bears really need him? You know, crazy production. The Bears don't actually want that. Someone that I look out for, and someone that when I was watching his tape, I was like going, man, how can the Bears get someone like this? And that's Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. And I see out there too. Yeah, Broski's saying, keep telling you that Ben has a thing for Tyler Warren. I would love to see Tyler Warren because when you're talking about next level tight ends, this guy, you know, one great season of production. Right now, he's the overall 11th best prospect that's currently available. But Tyler Warren is a big time playmaker at the tight end position. He's also more of a Y tight end. So he's more the inline tight end rather than the slot tight end that like a Brock Bowers was. Also, there's another tight end from Michigan. Mind is blanking on his name. He's more of that slot type of a tight end rather than the inline tight end. That's where, to me, Tyler Warren is someone definitely to look out for. Also, another person, like I said, the impact on the draft, right? What impact does this make? I think that the Bears can kind of take that best player available and they can lean towards that. And that's where I think Mason Graham opens up those questions. I think he's the most questionable person that's on that. But I think this also opens up, if they love Ashton Genty, they could do that. Not saying I would do it, but I'm saying that now they are in a position to do something like that. And also another piece I just want to throw out there, Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks at left tackle, who's probably going to be there. Membu, a lot of people are projecting he's going to go a lot higher. Also, he's more of a right tackle. So to me, if you're going to get a left tackle, get a left tackle. I also tweeted this out during all the free agency craziness. There has never been a tackle that has been drafted in the first round that has a shorter wingspan than Will Campbell. Will Campbell, incredibly narrow shoulders, narrow arms. That's something that just does not fly at the tackle position. So that's why, to me, draft a tackle if you're going to draft a tackle at 10. And I think that's where you get kind of the flexibility. And I think with defensive ends, you can, but I don't love any of the defensive ends at that 10 spot. Stewart, not a lot of production. Mykel Williams, not a lot of production. Quite frankly, watching Mykel Williams, not a big fan of his. Not saying he's terrible, but he's one of those larger guys, not a lot of production. Just don't like that. Don't love that on my team, like we just talked about with Dayo. But then you get into the second round, and I know what a lot of us want. I know Broski's out there too. There's Amarion Hampton, this guy out of North Carolina, running back. Guy can run. The guy can hit. He's going to lower his shoulder. Also, I rewatched Cam Scatabo because when I first watched him, I didn't like him. Watched him again, I go, okay, I could see it. And also, anybody, I just want to set the record straight. Cam Scatabo is not Mike Allstott. He's not any of those, I've heard some of these weird comps. To me, he's more like a David Montgomery type, where it's just he's this very difficult to bring down. He's not carrying people on back of him like an Allstott and plowing through people. He's very side to side, shifty, but can hit you a little bit. So to me, look out for running back, because I think that could be one of the positions that they just want to address, because they need to upgrade from a DeAndre Swift. They want to upgrade for that to just be here's our system, run the ball. Don't just be running it outside all the time, right? Simple, easy. So yeah, I see a couple questions out there. Do we trade back from 10? Bears bones, draft a running back in the second. That's where I like some of those things. I like that because with that pick at the 10, get a Tyler Warren. You can get some of these, you can get depth at left tackle so that you can put some pressure on Braxton Jones. I like that. So let's see what else we have to, that just like for the second round picks as well. I still like the idea of a defensive end out there. I know we've been talking defensive ends a little bit, but I see like a Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M just dropping right now. He's the number 34 overall prospect. Also JT Tuimoloau, he checks the boxes for what you want in a defensive end. You got to love that. There's also just other people that you can at least take a chance on at the defensive end spot. So that's why I kind of like it a little bit farther down the road. So there's a lot that we can do. There's definitely a lot that we can do out there, but let me know what y'all think down in the comments. So make sure to like and subscribe out there. We have a lot of draft coverage to come through. I don't know how many running back profiles I've already been doing so far. Got a lot. Like I said, that's going to probably be our first draft breakdown when we talk about my big board and we break down all those different running backs. The big board is getting close. It's getting close. I don't know when exactly I want to push it out, but it's getting close to like 100 different draft profiles that I write myself. So lots of great stuff coming out there. We will have you covered with whatever the Bears do over the next coming days. And also look at that. 60% of you are saying A overall for the day, 40% saying B overall. Love it so much. Make sure to like and subscribe though if you're out there on YouTube. Also, download the podcast. You can listen to it during the day when you're working. With that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.